Hey, this is Chuck, and you are listening to Fans with Bands, the podcast where we talk to the fans and the bands they dig about life, music, and whatever the hell else we want to talk about. Welcome to Season 5 of Fans with Bands. Today we are talking with One With The Riverbed. Check it out. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Fret Rescue. Located in Southeast Michigan, Joe at Fret Rescue has over 17 years of experience as a journeyman luthier. From basic setup to major repairs and restorations, you can put your trust in Fret Rescue. Contact Fret Rescue via email at fretrescue@gmail.com. You can also find them on social media by searching for Fret Rescue, @FERTRESCUE. That's Fret Rescue. Hey, this is Chuck with Fans with Bands, and I'm talking to Jared, Jimmy, and Brian from One With The Riverbed. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. So I became an instant fan of your band when I happened upon you at Jeff Fest in 2022. You guys played, and I was like, holy shit, who is this band? I think I immediately bought your album, The Absence, and a t-shirt, which I love. And then I reaffirmed my love when I saw you guys again at Oigs Fest just this year.
Yeah.
Just something about the music you guys make is near and dear to my heart. I am a fan of like early Dissection and At the Gates, plus bands like Uwada and Winter Filleth. And you guys just make fantastic music that kind of fits into that stark, desperate, blackened atmospheric music. So I'm beyond thrilled to have you guys on Fans with Bands.
Thank you. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
I love the Winter Filleth message. I've been jamming the new singles a lot.
Oh, yeah. Actually, years ago, I think I was at that time doing some writing for, might have been this magazine called Metalwani. And at that time, I was doing a lot of different interviews for them, and I got to interview, I think he's the guitar player and vocalist for that band. But that was super cool because I was a fan, and then, just getting the chance to talk to those guys, like, holy shit, and, how do you come up with this? And now I want to go to the lake region of England, because that's where like a lot of that stuff, that folklore that they write about comes from. And I'm like, man, I just want to go experience that. The music seems to capture the kind of essence of that landscape that they live in. So I don't know if it's true, but I want to go see it. So I'd kind of like to start at the beginning. And like, how did One With The Riverbed get started? How did you guys form the band?
So we all kind of knew each other from the scene one way or another, because we've always, been in other local bands and stuff. It kind of started, I think, me, Brian, John, and Lisa were getting together and kind of like writing riffs and stuff, but we were just like, we couldn't go anywhere because we didn't have a drummer. And then one day I shot Jimmy a message, and I'm like, hey, we're trying to do this. Do you want to come check it out? And we actually met at some trails, and we went for a walk together. As
cool.
Sort of like just kind of talking things over, like where we wanted to go, what we were thinking, bands we might like or something like that. And turns out there's not a lot in common, but it seems to work.
Yeah, so I had just gotten out of the band that I had been in throughout high school, and I was initially a little reluctant to get involved with anything else. But I knew Jared mostly. I kind of knew John and Brian a little bit, but I knew like Jared had done sound for a lot of shows in the area, and so I'd kind of just seen him around, and always got good vibes from him. So when he reached out, I was like, yeah, why not? Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That is one thing to mention. Jimmy's like at least 8 years younger than us.
7.
Seven.
Something
Yeah.
like
Seven.
Oh, that's nothing. Come on.
Well, when I grabbed him, he was 19 years old. We've been
Yeah.
Oh,
a band
right.
for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy, like having gone through some really formative years in this project, but it's never been like, I would say it's never been an issue. Like it has, especially now that like I'm a little older, it definitely doesn't come up. But even when we started, it never felt like, oh, like I'm the young kid.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
felt like we were, on a level playing field, which I always really appreciated because that was like a little bit of a concern, not concern, but like I just questioned if that would be kind of a weird dynamic, especially because everyone else knew each other really, really well. And
Yeah.
so I was kind of like the newcomer to the gang, but they were so great early on, especially of like helping me feel welcomed. Integrating me into the group. We practiced. I was living with my dad when this band started, for reference, and so like we practiced at my dad's house in the basement, and everyone would come out and we'd hang and stuff like
Nice.
that. So it was a pretty seamless transition for me, at least.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool. So I'm curious, how did the name of the band come up? Is there any significance
So,
behind it?
so we were going back and forth about a name for a while. Just firstly, everything ever is taken. Obviously.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
you really have to get creative. And I think for me, because I came up with it and I just messaged our group chat. I'm like, what do you think of this? For me, I kind of always resort to writing about like themes of like renewal, being like, decay, then plant life thrives off of that, or, things of that nature. And I just kind of felt like One With The Riverbed kind of fit that.
Nice. And I thought it was very cool just because it captures the essence of, an endless flow. Uh,
Mhm.
and, now that you mentioned the renewal, that, the river is kind of that source of carrying away, the debris, but also bringing things to life, through the water. But I was just thinking of it from that flowing, because your music is it's very atmospheric. There's definitely this sensation that I get when I'm listening to it of that flow, this kind of movement of water almost, where the music's, the dynamics are swelling and then going back. So, sort of like a river, during
Yeah.
times of flood or drought, it's constricting and widening. So, yeah, very cool. Awesome. So I saw that, I think it was back in July, you had the new song Dominion, from the upcoming albums Succumb, which comes out October 25th.
Yep.
Right? Yep. And
Yep.
it was awesome that was over on Decibel magazine, where they had that release. I'm curious, how do you feel that the new music, with Dominion being an example of it, compares to the last release and the music on Absence?
You want to take this, Brian?
Oh, I don't know.
So I point to Brian because Dominion was pretty much made up of riffs that Brian brought into practice.
Yeah.
And then we, made the song.
So that's definitely the biggest contribution of a song I've put forward so far.
It was like there's like the main riff and like what I would consider the verse part, and like we all heard that for the first time. We're like, Brian, like give us more of that, please.
I feel like this record is the most collaborative
Mhm.
record
For
we've
sure.
made. Like nobody is like I don't think John told you anything to play. I don't think you told John anything to play. It just kind of
Happened
that way.
Nice.
I feel like too, like sonically, it's very much an extension of what we've done, but just like the feeling of creating it was a lot more relaxed. Like with Absence, there was definitely like we kind of put some pressure on ourselves because we like Solace, the first EP came very quickly.
Uh-huh.
And then after that it was like fuck, like we have to write like an album
More
now.
music.
So I feel like we've never been a band that like argues with each other, tear our hair out over like conflicts, but the closest we've ever come to that was definitely writing Absence. Whereas like, and then even like recording it, like we recorded that record
in 2020.
Yeah,
So
like-
that was very
Oh,
weird.
wow. Yeah.
masked. We delayed. So like the day we were supposed to record fell pretty much the same week, I want to say, as when things locked down. I might be a little
Oh.
off, but it was close enough.
Yeah.
Right.
'cause we had, you know, made some like live playthroughs and stuff. We were just kind of like, you know, trying to say, hey, new record coming. We released this stuff and then pandemic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And then,
we were
okay.
delayed for a while. And like kind of tagging onto that, we waited probably 2 years to play shows after the pandemic because we
Yeah.
just didn't know like what.
Oh, for
This-
sure. It was total chaos, really. I mean, anybody that tried to do anything, you know, like half of those shows got canceled or rescheduled or something because, yeah, it was just too sketchy and too weird, and nobody knew what the fuck to do. And yeah,
Yeah, it was very weird, and I think it was a really good testament to our relationship because we were able to remain a band throughout that whole time. Like
Right.
we would get on like group calls and just talk about stuff or
Yeah.
whatever, and it kind of maintained the relationship. I feel like there's a lot of bands that didn't make it out just from time passing, you know.
yeah. Well, and I guess that speaks to the, like you were saying, the relationship, the friendship that you guys have developed through your music, because yeah, there were definitely bands that didn't carry on, and you know, just because they lost momentum or they just, you know, lost the incentive, you know, if they weren't practicing or doing those things they had done before, and they didn't really have those kind of relationships that carry you through. So that's pretty cool, I think. And it probably, and I guess that fuels to some extent, you can let me know if I'm right or wrong, the new album, because you said it was the most collaborative yet. So that seems to indicate that, to me, you know, from the outside, that friendship, that that continuing evolving thing, especially hanging on to each other through the pandemic, kind of helped formulate that songwriting. Would you agree with that, or?
I think so. I mean, the one thing too that I meant to say earlier about Absence is part of kind of what happened there is when we released Solace, the label that released Absence approached us almost immediately on Solace's release.
Yeah.
And at first we were like, this seems weird. Like, should we do that
Yeah.
or whatever? And we were like, screw it, let's just do it. But what had happened was the contract was like, the album's going to be delivered by the end of, I don't know, 2020, I guess.
I think it was something like that.
And to a point where like the label wasn't like rushing or whatever. It's just, you know, it's an indie label, small label.
Yeah.
But we felt I didn't want to not fulfill the contract, even though it probably wouldn't have been a big deal. So that was a huge, you know, push on that album. And it you know, it was a bit more stressful. And this album, we were just kind of like, let's just do it and see what happens.
We'll do it when we do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we like very little did we talk about like when do we want to be done with it. It was just like we'll finish it when we finish it. And I remember too, even like the first iteration of writing that we did for the record didn't make the record because it just wasn't.
Yeah.
We weren't cooking the way we wanted to cook. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like that's what I mean when I say it was like more relaxed. But I think too, like at this point, we do have that understanding and that trust of just working together for so long, having done an EP and a full length before this one, that it just feels a lot more natural. It's just like, you know, we have that rhythm, pun intended.
Yes.
I think over time, obviously, I mean, it's been, you know, 7 years, 2 of them being the pandemic for us, but like, even when we go on tour, like we all know our own little weird things that the
Yeah.
other person needs and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So I think it definitely lends itself to being a more collaborative album because it's just kind of like, let's just do it and see what
Yeah.
happens.
This is what we
'Cause
do.
I'm one of those people where it's like I'll hear a riff and it's like I hear like a drum beat in my head, and then Jimmy plays something that I've never considered in my life, and I like it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's what cool and fun and whatever.
Yeah, that is awesome. So, speaking of the songwriting, what am I trying to say? What is that process? Is you because you mentioned that Brian had brought in some riffs and that assemblage of those ended up being Dominion. Is it pretty much like that where somebody has fragments of ideas and you guys bring them together to then craft tunes, or does somebody kind of flesh out a full skeleton of something and then the band comes in and adds pieces? What's the process like for you guys?
So more often than not, it's when we're all together. I mean, honestly, typically John brings something forward,
Yeah,
and we
we've done
develop it.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've done all of those.
I was going to say it's usually a hybrid of those formats.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll wake up in the morning and there'll be like an audio text from Brian from like 3 a.m. It'll be like a great riff, and I'm like, we have to jam on that. Sometimes we vaguely were writing a song the last time we were together, and that just kind of happened. John just kind of had something, and we just went with it.
Yeah, well, so we'll typically start practice just with like very loose. I don't even want to say it's a warm up. Like John will just be messing around.
Yeah.
I don't always know if it's like he's coming up with something on the spot or it's like preconceived, but we'll just kind of go off of it. I'll just like tinker around and find some beat, and then sometimes we don't revisit it, and then sometimes like it's a song, but
Right.
it really is a blend. It has been exciting though, like we were saying, having Brian contribute more, because I feel like we're getting like they have their own flavors as like guitarists and also as songwriters, and it's been really fun to see like how those fit together. I even like I'm not a guitarist by any means, but like I even contributed a riff on the new record, which was super like
All right.
expect that to happen. I brought what I thought was kind of this stupid riff. And John was like, "No, that's cool," and now it's on the record. So
Hey guys, check out this riff. It sucks.
it's really bad. I think we should make an 8-minute song out of it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, this sucks, but let's try it anyway. Yeah. Oh my God. So, when you're in the practice space, working on things, are you guys constantly recording?
Yeah.
Yeah.
John will always take audio notes on his phone, and then at some point, which I forgot to send our last practice, I'll have a little handheld recorder, and we will record those, and then just kind of listen back. And sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and that's because I just remember, back in the day, that was like critical because half the time you'd forget what the hell you did. You're like, I don't know what it was.
I'm notorious for like completely forgetting what I played when I
Yeah, yeah. Or you might even like within like maybe even like 10 minutes of jamming, somebody will play something and they go, "Oh, play that again." And they're like, "What?" Like what?
Whoa.
I don't know.
That is what Brian does every time we practice.
That's literally, yeah. It's my amount.
Oh my gosh. I thought
Well,
I was
we are
I thought
good
I
at
was
that.
the only one.
We are good at cataloging demos.
Mhm.
Before going into Absence and Succumb, like we had essentially full demos of everything, and
Yeah.
I would listen to that religiously before
Yeah.
we went to record, just to have
Yeah.
a good foundation to remember what was happening.
Yeah, because I use them too because I come up with my vocal parts outside of practice generally.
Yeah.
So I'll listen to those back and just kind of figure out. figure out what I have the lung capacity to do. From there.
So, this is a question for each of you, and it's about your kind of origins, individual origin stories. How did each of you like decide that you wanted to become a musician and play in a band? Because, and I make that distinction because there's lots of people that pick up instruments and play, and some are like master their instrument as best you can, or over time, but there's another person that does that as well, but then also says, I want to be in a band and play live shows. That's a different kind of thing. So for each of you, how did you start playing your instrument or vocals, and then what was inspiring for you to want to be in a band? Who wants to start?
Who goes first?
I'll go first.
All
So
right.
I didn't decide that I wanted to play music. I basically was, as a child, like, I want to say forced, but my family is a family of musicians.
Oh, okay.
My dad's a trumpet player. My mom was a band director, and she passed away when I was very young. But one of her asks of my dad was to have me start piano lessons like as early as possible. So I did piano up until about 5th grade. Of course, at the time, I was like, this is dumb. In hindsight, I wish I did it longer. But by the time I was in like 5th, 6th grade, I feel like a lot of people can relate to this. I got a copy of Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park, and I was like, oh, you can, like, music can sound like this. Like, it's
Yeah.
not just nadas. Like, it can be this whole other thing. And then from there, I just started like getting into whatever you would call it, rock, metal. And I was always really interested in the drummers. I just thought it was like, it felt very different than piano. Piano felt like a very, like, I just associated it with like chores, to be honest, which I feel bad now, but I did. And drums felt like this whole other world. And so I convinced my dad to get me just like a starter kit. And then I did that for a while, just kind of like casually with friends. I was forming, like, in air quotes, bands,
Yeah.
and like cool, but they like weren't. We'd like learn to play a cover and then break up. But yeah, I kind of did that for a while. I met some kids who were like-minded, and then we started what I would consider my first real band. And at that point is when I do feel like I kind of made the shift, because I had been in like concert band and marching band for a while. And I kind of dropped that. I kind of felt like I was a teenager, I was like, I'm too cool for this. Stupid. It's so stupid. I think those formal experiences are like so incredibly helpful,
Yeah.
and formative for musicians, but I just kind of took the dark path. And, I'm glad like where it ended up, but
Yeah.
yes, I guess like it was never really a question of like if I was gonna do music. It was just where I took it, and I am here now.
Nice. Very nice. Let's see. Brian or Jared, who wants to go?
What do you think?
I guess I can go.
All right.
So I learned how to play bass from my brother because he had a bass guitar.
All
Taught me
right.
some Smashing Pumpkin songs, and then I learned every 4-chord punk song I could. And eventually, I don't really know the catalyst for it, but I got a guitar. And then around that time, I was like 13, 14, got into metalcore, learned how to do that stuff, and eventually started searching for heavier stuff, learned how to play more wild riffs, and now I don't know, I like playing some kind of amalgamation of all of that.
Yeah.
I guess. But
Did you just ask you to be in a band one day, or? We've never talked
I
about
mean,
this.
it's like I think the first band, quote unquote, I was in was a band trying to do Blink-182 cover songs
Got it.
that I was playing bass for, and was like, I can play these songs. Why can't you all play these songs? Last long, and eventually found somebody that played guitar that needed a bass player, and I hopped in that band, and that was my high school band, and that fizzled out after high school. So I reconnected with the drummer from that band later in life, and was in another punk band. And that's when I reconnected with Jared and John, and it was like, oh yeah, I can play guitar in this band, and I was like, oh yeah.
Awesome. So this band is the first band you played guitar in? You were playing bass with all the others?
Oh, okay. So I played guitar, I guess, in my post high school band.
Ah, gotcha. But it was punk. It wasn't.
It's more hardcore, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. But yeah, but not necessarily quite as orchestrated as this music is.
I wouldn't call it like straight up. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a difference between punk and hardcore, but
I know. it's a fuzzy area.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jared, how about you?
So I think for me, I think it was a lot of things. So firstly, my mom, she is also a musician in some regard. She was in like a band in high school and stuff. And she was always like into modern music, like as I grew up. So I remember listening to like Rage Against the Machine with her, or, System of a Down, that kind of thing. But I think kind of what happened is it set me up to be attracted to the most extreme genres of music possible. And I just remember like the first time, I don't even know what band it was or whatever. I remember the first time like hearing like metal vocals and being like, that's fucking cool. Like I want to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And then, much to my parents' dismay, I was like 14, 15 trying to do vocals in the garage. I'm sure it wasn't soundproof. And yeah, just kind of went from there. I just remember one day just immediately trying to get something together. Like I remember talking to Lisa. Lisa and I went to high school together. So and John, technically. And I remember talking to her, and I was like, we should start a band. I was like 15. Yeah, I just kind of went from there. I just immediately like, I want to do this. I want to perform that. Because with vocals, it's not like, I'm not like riffing.
Yeah.
So
well,
I gotta find an outlet.
Yeah, yeah. I think vocalists also, they can help to dictate somewhat the rhythmic pacing of the music, and they add, depending on the vocalist, either a harmonic or melodic, context for that as well. So yeah, it's I've always been envious of people that can do great vocals and drummers, because I can play guitar, not the greatest, but I always thought that those two skills were like, especially drums. I was like, fuck, but I'm not coordinated at all. Like,
and, yeah, I think about drums a lot, and I just do not have that kind of isolation.
yeah,
I just don't. I can only do like 1.5 things.
Right. Yeah. I can't have the two hands independently going from the feet, but I'm always impressed, when I see, especially like killer double bass and then, just rolling toms and all that crap. Like, holy crap, that's awesome. So who would you guys say is your biggest influences for each of you? So Jared, who would be some vocalists that influence you the most?
It's good that you're doing this individually.
So we talked about this. We talked about this question a lot because we, as a unit, like don't have universal influences.
Yeah, like for context, when we go to shows, we don't collectively listen to music.
Uh-huh.
Oh wow,
Like,
really?
I'll just drive in silence.
Yeah.
Most of the time. I don't even, yeah. But vocally, it's hard. It's hard. I know there's some people where I'm like, that's what's up. The problem is I listen to a lot of bands where I don't know how to pronounce the band name.
Awesome.
So off the top of my head, I think one I would reference is Asar Hadan, right?
Okay.
They have a vocalist named Anna, and the way she does vocals to me, she doesn't like do a lot of up and down, but it's just like straightforward and it's great tone. And I don't know, there's something about it, it just really hits for me.
Yeah.
um yeah, I guess vocalist is hard because
Yeah.
sometimes I like bands, and I like a lot of formative bands for me. One would be Envy, which is like a post rock, post metal,
Post metal.
post
Yeah.
screamo band from
Whole lot of
Japan.
post.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome.
And I've always been interested in the way he does vocals. He does both spoken word and screamed vocals. And just something about the way he layers them over the music has been very inspirational to me.
Yeah.
It's almost minimal, and which is good because sometimes if I'm writing to a song, I'm not performing it, and then we go to the studio and I realize I'm not capable of doing it. So that's always been a good inspiration.
Yeah.
And then various other ones like Wolves on the Throne Room is probably one of my favorite bands ever.
He's wearing the tee.
I'm wearing the tour
yeah.
shirt.
Nice.
And
Critical information.
yeah, things
Yeah.
of that nature.
Yeah, yeah, that band's awesome. I saw them. I think they opened up for At the Gates, or maybe it was Behemoth. I can't remember. I saw them at St. Andrews Hall, but I'm
Nice.
blanking out on the show.
Brian
Yeah,
and I just saw them this year.
Last year.
Last year.
It's
Nice.
been almost a year now.
Oh my God. At Elm, Detroit.
Fantastic. Brian, how about you? Who are your influences?
I mean, I don't know. I don't have a great answer for that. I latched onto like a huge fan of Swedish death metal, and during my later teenage years, I was a huge fan of everything black metal, and
Nice.
I've always had I don't know, I like the soft stuff too, and so I feel like the stamina of playing. I don't have a person in particular necessarily.
Yeah, more band than the individual.
Yeah, for sure. Like I mean, I still am obsessed with Cannibal Corpse, but that doesn't translate necessarily into what we do in any way. But
right,
being able to play
that intensity,
kind of stuff, like,
yeah,
I can sit down and play what we play without struggling too much, I guess. And and I feel like if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to, because
I think one good indicator of Brian is that he's not like a big pedal guy, but he has multiple versions and clones of the HM2.
So lots of Entombed and
oh, absolutely, Dismember.
Yeah, Dismember. Yeah. Awesome. I remember when I got Wolverine Blues, because at the time I wasn't really into death metal at all, and a friend gave me that album, Carcass Heartwork, and At the Gates. I always blank out on the name of that album. It's the one with the red hand on the cover. That's before Slaughter of the Soul. Terminal Spirit Disease. There it is. Yeah, honestly, when I heard At the Gates, well, and Carcass too, but I was like, what is this? This is so fucking awesome. And I still fucking.
I had the backwards effect with Carcass because I heard Heartwork first,
Yeah.
And then I started digging into their earlier stuff, and it was like, this is disgusting. I love it.
Yeah, I
How do you,
remember
how do you
seeing
make
that.
this sound like this? Like,
I think
still trying to figure that one out,
what was it? Corporeal jigsaw puzzle. And the I just remember I didn't know who the band was. I just remember going to the record store. This is before I got into death metal, but that it was at the time when Carcass was doing the grindcore stuff, and it was just this album with you know autopsy photos that was on the cover. You know, like just pieces and blood, and like what in the fuck is this? Yeah. So then later, after Heartwork, yeah, I went back and I'm like, huh, this is not the same band. I mean, 'cause it's
but right.
like a fucking huge shift, you know? But
This is very different.
yeah, yeah. But you could still say there's elements, and I love, um, fuck, Bill Steer's guitar. It doesn't
Oh
matter what
yeah.
he's playing. Yeah, that guy it rips.
Feels- that's
Jimmy, how about you?
Yeah, so it's definitely changed a lot. I mean, like when I was first getting into drumming, it was a lot of kind of like the usual suspects, Joey Jordison, Dave Grohl, Abe Cunningham from Deftones was a big
Okay.
one in terms of like groove and pocket.
Yeah.
Aaron Gillespie from Under Oath. So kind of like, your standard like metal drummer fare. Now it's definitely I'd say like my tastes have probably strayed the furthest from heavy music out of everyone in the band. That's not to say like I don't still like heavy music, but honestly, most of what I listen to nowadays is like singer songwriter, folk, alt country, indie kind of stuff.
Oh, wow, cool.
So like drum wise, I take a lot of inspiration just from like random stuff. Honestly, like a lot of big pop music. What not like I shouldn't say big pop music, but like Hako Twins, like kind of 80s synth
Yeah.
pop, like
Yeah.
just that really kind of like um it's really locked in, but those sounds that are like percussion, but it's not drums, anything like that's really interesting. The last Fiona Apple record, weirdly enough, she did a lot of like um just like not drumming but percussion, and a lot of it was just like found stuff like couch cushions and like hand lids.
Yeah.
It's like on when I explain it like that it sounds like insane, but I think stuff like that's really interesting, uh just because it makes me think about the role that drumming has differently, because I don't necessarily want to just like ape the shit that I used to like, and that I'm like, this is metal drumming, so therefore I do that.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I try to pull from a lot of different places. Um, that's my roundabout way of giving that. I like a little bit of everything answer,
Well,
but it's true.
yeah, and I think when my experience with talking with multiple people is that the music that they play may not necessarily reflect the music that they listen to on a regular basis.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think um I don't want to speak for him, but I know like when we're writing, sometimes John avoids albums because he doesn't want to like accidentally gain too much inspiration from it. Like he wants to think outside the box, you know?
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, yeah. I know that problem because so way back in the day, I used to play in a band, and I got really obsessed with the band Forbidden, the thrash band from the Bay Area, and they're kind of technical, and so all that stuff started creeping into my playing, and I'm like, holy crap. I did not I wasn't close to the level of like oh shit, what was his name, Tim Calvert, who was just fucking awesome guitar player, uh but yeah, I can see where that would kind of bleed in sometimes if you're listening. Do you guys have trouble? I know you're listening to your um like the demos and recordings of yourselves, but do you ever have any trouble going back to listen to your older music?
Um, I don't think I have trouble. I just think I don't.
You just
Yeah.
don't. Yeah.
I know we definitely do it when it's like, let's add this song to the set.
Right.
Yeah. How did we play that?
I've semi-frequently go back and just listen through everything and see if I can still play it off of memory. So
I
Yeah.
feel like I like once a year will sit down and listen to everything, but other than that, I don't know, because part of it too is like we play the song so often, both at shows and at practice, that I'm kind of like, I know these.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was kind of more thinking like, do you ever get burned out with it? It's because you have played it so much that you're just like, I just want to think
There's-
about fresh
yeah.
music and fresh tunes.
There's
Yes.
a couple songs where one of us has been like, I need to not play this for a long. And sometimes they're all different songs, which makes it
No
hard
problem.
to come up with a set.
Because you don't have that many. So when you're full length, it's only 5 songs, and everyone gets tired of a different one at some point. I will say though, like as much as that's true, there's also the songs that we have never really gotten tired of. Like Thaw is the first track on Absence, and we have been ending our sets with that song for several years. And it's never been a question of like, oh my God, this one again.
Yeah.
There's the reliable ones where they always feel fresh, and then the ones that we do get tired on, we just rotate in and out. And
Yeah.
if you let it sit for a few months, typically like we'll come back to it and it feels exciting again.
Yeah, we try to have some variety. There's definitely some songs. I think we've only played Sanctuary like twice ever, right?
Yeah,
Live once.
or
I
twice.
think we only played it once.
Oh, wow.
So there's some things like that. And I will say, I end up, when we finish an album, I end up listening to it a lot.
Me too.
But it's mostly well, we all do, because we have to go back and forth on mixes like 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But I do it because there's a good chance that I laid out the vocal parts for the first time in the studio.
Yeah.
So I have to like drill it into my brain. And then once it's there, I kind of just don't really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say on that same note, like the thing that's always funny to me is when I'll revisit like the album version of something and I've been playing it completely differently, or like there's some part that I do completely differently. Like, oh, oops. I like to think that whatever I'm doing is usually like an improvement, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, it would be hard, especially, I think of your music as very, texturally complex. And so it would be, I would imagine, difficult to sometimes keep all of that in your head and then be able to just,
Yeah.
bam, put it out on the stage. And plus, you're
Yeah.
playing on stage, which has an intensity of its own, right? Just performing. And then trying to keep your shit together and go, okay, this is where this is going.
Yeah.
It has to be muscle memory almost.
Yeah.
We have definitely like live versions of
Yep.
songs.
Yeah.
Just because, we don't need to fall out for 5 minutes in the middle of the set.
Right.
Yeah. Like the stuff on Solace too, like we definitely play it a little different just because those songs are 7 years old now. And I feel like we would get really sick of them if we didn't put little embellishments and add little textures and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes it fun for fans too that have come to see your shows and have seen you multiple times, and they go, oh, that's slightly different from what I remember on the album, or slightly different from the last time I saw them. It kind of keeps it interesting for everybody.
There was a comment on our single release that was like, I feel like I've heard this song 11 times this year. And I was like, probably. We've been playing it second to set for quite a while.
Yeah.
Oh,
Especially
man.
like we will typically add new stuff to the set long before it's put out on an album. Like like Dominion is a good example of that. We played that on our tour last summer.
Yeah.
We played that two.
Sorry, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, all three.
We played that on our tour 2 summers ago. Excuse me. Like, I can definitely understand someone being like, "Oh, hey, I think I know."
Yeah. For some context with that is we've had this album finished for 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like fully recorded, done. We just kind of wanted to find a home for it, I think. And we're kind of a slow moving band.
Yeah.
Like we didn't do album art for a while. It just kind of was like out there. We could be very casual.
Like it'll happen when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's 5 of us, so it's sometimes it's hard to just like, get in the same room and like actually dedicate time to discussing that,
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
could be just practicing or playing music or something.
Right. So, related to the band and performing live, do you guys remember the very first time you played a show together? And what did each of you kind of take away from that experience?
I remember it.
Papa Pete's.
Yeah.
I definitely do remember it. Yeah, I mean, it feels like a lifetime ago. I remember it specifically because my sister was in town, like just happened to be in town visiting. She lives in North Carolina, so like doesn't happen super often. And my nephews were there, and at the time they were like children. Like, I mean, the youngest one is like freshly 18, so they would have been like 13 and 11 or something like that.
Yeah.
And the venues are usually like pretty strict about not letting in minors, but they were like they made an exception because it's like clearly they're there with mom and grandpa. Because my dad came. So I just remember we wrote Solace because we needed a set. Like that was what that record was. We said we need about 30 minutes of music, give or take. And that became the EP. So it has always felt really natural in that sense. Like when we did a show pretty early this year where we played the whole thing front to back for the first time in God knows how long. And it was really fun to revisit just kind of like that energy from like I said before, like we did it quickly because we just wanted to play. And so then to finally like get on a show, it was my first time playing a show with a band that wasn't my high school band. I think at least. So it was cool. I don't know.
I remember it, and I don't think I really had any takeaways, and I think the reason for that is because we practiced a lot before we booked a show. Because we formed in 2018, but we played the first show in 2019, I believe.
I think it was
2017.
Yeah, 2017.
Sorry, John's the date guy. He's not. But yeah, I remember there being like a lot of friends there that we already knew from the scene, so I think that definitely was helpful. And
Awesome.
I don't really remember the show itself, but we have a recording of the full set that I frequently will go back and listen to because it was before we recorded.
We did. From that show.
I don't remember that.
No.
By our friend Jeff.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Excellent. Jeff with the recorder. Yeah.
So it's interesting hearing us playing all that live, and at the end of the day, it doesn't sound too much different from what we ended up doing from a structural standpoint. Which is pretty sick. But
I mean, and to, I think that makes a statement about how well prepared you guys were and how, I guess, invested into your craft, and by that I mean, sometimes when a band first starts out, can be rough. Like it's not, timing's off, people fuck shit up, and when you come back, it's almost a different band because they've polished their shit up. So that kind of tells me that you guys had worked out a lot of that crap so that by the time you did hit the stage, you were, like you said, just ready to go.
Yeah. Plus, we've all played enough shows beforehand too that there wasn't really any
Yeah. Like, oh, fuck, what's going on?
trying.
Yeah, and I think too, like there was just kind of this unspoken understanding that like if we were gonna put in the work to do this like new project, we were gonna take it seriously. And like
Right.
that's the thing that I always really like about our band and I like to talk about is we have so much fun together, but we also like we take what we do seriously. And I like to think that shows like in the live performances, also in like just kind of the way we handle the band as like an entity, but that started day one, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just my personal observation from seeing you guys live and also listening to your music, uh, it's very impressive, and I think it's fantastic. So it does, I think, to your point, it does speak volumes that you guys are so dedicated to your sound to make it that impressive. I'm still, fucking blown away. I can't wait for the new album.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks.
We're excited to release it. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's been so
Yeah,
Yeah.
since it's been sitting around for 2 years, I'm like, fuck.
It no longer feels like a new album.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
but,
gonna say, yeah, it's like, oh fuck, this is old shit.
I mean, it'd be great to get it out there.
Oh
I
yeah,
think.
just to have it as a package, yeah, it would be great. So speaking
Thank
of that, when it comes out, is it what kind of release are you doing? Digital, any physical media?
So it's going to be CDs and cassettes.
Ooh, cassettes.
So
Wow.
thank you to Dusktone for picking it up. Otherwise, who knows when we would have released it.
Yeah.
So because we were very casual with this writing process, we just kind of did it and we ended up with what we ended up with. And
Mhm.
it's both too long for a single 12-inch vinyl and too short for a double. Digital and cassette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This time. And I'm hoping one day we'll do a vinyl if we
Be
Just
cool.
get around to it.
Yeah. You'll just have to control the songwriting to just the right length.
We're likely going to do another single first because it's an 8-track
Yeah.
album. So can get away with it.
Yeah.
It'll be he's heard 11 times.
Probably.
It'll be the recorded version. So
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Uh, just a question I was thinking of when you mentioned Jeff. So how do you feel about the music scene in your area and in Michigan in general?
I mean, I
Seems
think
supportive to me, but I'm not necessarily
I
ensconced in Kazoo. So
I will say Kalamazoo is really going off lately. Like there
Nice.
is multiple shows every weekend,
Yeah.
and we're not that big of a city,
No.
and it's
Yeah.
cool. There's a lot of new ideas.
Yeah.
I know it's like cliche to say
Mhm.
or whatever, but like you'll see like a shoegaze band, but it'll be like something completely refreshing and new. You'll see weird punk bands, whatever. Like I think there's a lot of almost abstract ideas that are being executed well,
Nice.
and a lot of bands, which is cool.
Yeah, I think like Jared and I were literally talking about this last night. Kind of moved from a place where I don't know, the general feeling 7 years ago was kind of like we just need more stuff happening. Like there is stuff there, we just need a surplus of it. And
Yeah.
now we're at the point where I don't know, like whether it's the house show scene or the venue scene, not that there's like many places, but they're always going off.
Yeah.
It's really easy too to like put together a really diverse bill, to Jared's point. Like my favorite is when we'll play with like a band that is like 10 times heavier than us and a band that's like 10 times softer than us,
Yep.
and it's somehow like you kind of get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's an exciting time in Kalamazoo. I'm really glad people are starting to like take notice.
That's cool. That is fantastic. Well, guys, I really appreciate you being on Fans with Bands. I've got just one last question for each of you.
Okay.
And that is, pineapple or no pineapple on pizza?
Oh my God.
Pineapple all the way.
I've never tried pepper.
What?
I've never tried it.
So that we're gonna have to change that. No, pineapple and pizza.
Dude.
It sounds texturally unappealing to
It
me.
is.
It's all about the
It is. Oh,
Everything about it is bad.
oh
Two
man.
strong opinions and one neutral one.
Yeah, yeah.
You really ran the gamut there.
Right, right. So, Brian, you did like,
I'm pro pineapple.
yeah, you're pro pineapple. So, I'm curious, what combination of toppings do you like with the pineapple? Is it the traditional just ham and pineapple, or do you throw in jalapeno?
Pineapple, pepperoni, jalapeno.
Oh, see, that's what I keep hearing, because I am not a pineapple person at all. I mean, I like pineapple, but just I don't like sweet and savory. But
I understand why people don't like it.
yeah,
but
yeah, but I'm
think-
intrigued by that combination because I do like jalapenos, and so I'm curious about. I'm gonna have to try that. I keep saying that I'm gonna have to fucking do it.
I think it's worth a dive into at least one.
Yeah, exactly, man. You gotta fucking live. So, well, guys, thank you again so much for the music and for being on Fans of Bands. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks
you
for having us.
Yeah, this is fun. Thank you so much.
All right.
We've never done anything like this, so we appreciate it.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Well,
Never will again.
yeah, that's it. Fuck this and fuck that guy. All right. Well, thank you guys again. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you. See ya.
Many thanks to Jared, Jimmy, and Brian of One With The Riverbed for joining me on this episode of Fans with Bands. I can't say enough good things about this band. They are absolutely stellar, and it was an honor to talk with them and hear their story. They just released their outstanding new album called Succumb on Dusktone Records. Do yourself a favor and get a copy today. See the show notes for all the details and links. Bands are nothing without you, the fans. Purchasing music and merchandise is critical to their survival. If you can help out your favorite bands, please do. If you're in Michigan, consider following the Playing in Detroit Area Tonight and SE for Southeast Michigan Music Facebook pages. They are fantastic places for fans and bands to support each other and share our combined love of music. Thank you all so much for listening. Be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast service to get each and every episode of Fans with Bands. Spread the word by rating the show, telling your friends, telling your neighbors, telling your family, telling your priest, tell everyone, and leave a comment. We want to hear what you think. You can keep in touch by following us on social media. This is a Life in Michigan production. Until next time, be well and kick out the jams.